I'll be talking a little bit about these maps and a lot about Lemuria and how it was different back then than the way life is today. The background on Lemuria that the Lemurian Fellowship received came from the masters of the Lemurian Brotherhood. And we'll be glad to answer any questions you have at the end of this talk. And if there's someone coming into this room right after us, we'll meet you out in the hallway or at the booth, and we'll be glad to help out. As many of you may already believe, there was a highly advanced civilization on the continent of Lemuria. That continent was also known as the Continent of Mu. And it first began 78,000 years ago. The civilization lasted for 50,000 years before it sank into the Pacific Ocean. You can see on this black and white map to my left, the darker outline is the outline of the continent of Mu, also known as Lemuria. And it's shown in relation to where land masses are today. It was different 78,000 years ago. And what's interesting to know is this black and white map was drawn by Dr. Robert Stell in the 1940s. The map next to it, the color map, is a map of the Pacific Ocean that was created by the National Geographic Society in 1969, some 20 years later. And what's so striking to me between these two maps is that if you look at the outline of the continent of Mu on the black and white map, you can see it follows the oceanic ridges on the color Pacific Ocean map up through the Rockies, through the Aleutian Islands, down up to the west of Australia, below Australia, and below New Zealand, and back up. The Pacific Ocean holds many mysteries in the area where Lemuria existed, and it's likely that at least some of the islands in the Pacific are what remain above the sunken continent, and I'll speak about that for a moment in just a little bit. But because our time is limited today, we can't go into a lot of the historical and archaeological indications that point to the existence of Lemuria. But you can find interesting information on our website and in our videos on the website. And you'll see it'll talk about Malden Island, Easter Island, Nan Madol, and much more. There's also the long ago tales of the sunken continent of Lemuria. And these have been preserved in Hawaiian legends. One legend is called Menehune. And these legends are still told by the Hopi Indians of the American Southwest. And what I'll just mention is that the Hawaiian legends say that the continent of Lemuria extended from around Hawaii down to New Zealand, below New Zealand. And the Hopi Indians said that the remnants of Lemuria are Easter Island, which would be about over here on the black and white map, and some area of Hawaii. And we have more information, a lot of it free at our booth, and you're welcome to come by. You may wonder how this magnificent civilization started. The angels who first assisted mankind on the continent of Lemuria had experience on other planetary homes. They came to teach us how to create happiness in life, move closer to God by following the laws of God and nature, and to navigate through the complexities of forming a civilization. How many, I know the answer to this question, how many of you have a belief that there are others who exist outside of Earth? Okay, that's a good showing. That's almost everyone. I think we have some shy people here. Does it seem logical that some of the more advanced ones have come to be of help to mankind? When I learned that those who came to Earth to help humanity were angels, I didn't know anything about angels. But I immediately believed it, and it was like an inner knowing. But no matter what you believe, there are wiser beings than us, like God and Christ. And they guide us in how we can live in harmony and fulfill our purpose. Let's turn our attention now to what life was like at the height of the Lemurian civilization. It might be interesting to know that in the Lemurian Empire, we've been told that for a period of 12,000 years, there was no report of theft. Can you imagine that? 12,000 years, nothing was stolen. Compare that to today. How many thefts occur every minute of the day now? Unemployment and poverty, these were unknown. Life then was tranquil, purposeful, and there was a cohesiveness of all the people in the empire. But even more important were the spiritual values that made life so good. A workman was considered the equal of an executive. And this was not because there was a federal or state law that said so. This is the way people really felt about each other. What Lemurian citizens enjoyed seems idyllic compared to what life is today. But if you close your eyes a moment and just picture yourself back there in those days, you can feel your shoulders beginning to relax and the tension lifting from your body. And even the air around you may begin to seem a little bit lighter. And if you look to your right and to your left, the people who are sitting next to you, maybe they even look a little friendlier now than they already were when you first walked in. It's a nice feeling to have, and we can have it again. What if we had that every day? At work, at home, walking home at night, at meetings, even when we don't agree with one another. So, staying at that point in history back in Lemuria, men and women respected one another as equals. Competition played none of the role it does today in our world. And it is difficult for many of us to imagine the depth of the spiritual, material, and mental balance that permeated the homes at that time. In terms of education, it was necessary that the girls were more highly educated than the boys. And this was because of the care of the home and the responsibilities for educating the children and future citizens were regarded as the most valuable of all contributions of the empire. Yet the girls also needed to be trained in understanding the economy and governmental aspects of the empire, as were the boys. So let's try to think of what it was like not to be afraid back in Lemuria, to know that every person was guaranteed equal opportunity for education and employment according to their desire and ability. And this was considered a God-given right. When we imagine living in such an ideal environment, we tend to picture wonderful advances like we see in sci-fi movies. Things we can buy that supposedly make our lives easier, smart refrigerators, self-driving cars, and electronic devices of a dizzying variety. So far, though, all these material advances have seemed to make life more complicated, frustrating, and more importantly, have moved us away from one another, instead of making our lives easier and more relaxed. This is even though many of these inventions are so breathtaking as to take our breath away. So the question is, what's missing? What's missing is obvious to all of us, and that's the spiritual dimension. Where there is no spiritual balance, there is no feeling of inner peace. This has largely come about because the material aspect of life has grown so far out of balance. If you picture living in Lemuria, think of quiet and what it was like to feel secure and safe. Take a deep breath of its sweet-scented air. Try, too, to imagine how visually appealing it was, with buildings designed and landscaped to conform with their natural settings and to harmonize with their surroundings. Compared to today's towns and cities, there were no locks on doors or barred and shuttered windows, vacant weedy lots or trash-lined highways were not to be found. And the air and waterways could be enjoyed for what they were, because they were free of pollution. In the highly technologically and spiritually advanced Lemuria, absent were the kinds of everyday diversions we've grown accustomed to engaging in that we use to fill our free time. Now, the citizenry, they had museums, public parks, outdoor fun concerts, and other constructive pursuits they enjoyed. But nowhere in the beautiful and serene cities of Mu were there bars, fast food restaurants, pawn shops, amusement parks, or endless shops and stores, all carrying the same items and competing with each other. Well, take a moment and ask yourself if you'd miss any of those. Well, speaking for myself, I would probably miss my favorite pizza place. But I suppose all of us will need to take one small step at a time before we can let go of some of our favorite places. Also back then, there were no facades of bright lights like those that front the many escapes we all still feel a need for in today's society, where happiness and peace are desperately pursued, but so rarely found. In Maculian cities, you didn't hear the sounds of sirens or see police because there was an absence of crime. Even the noise inside factories was greatly subdued, and as was the sound from cars that would almost silently pass you by. A big part of what made Lemuria different from today is that much of their free time was spent socializing in homes with family, friends, and co-workers, gathering together to enjoy each other's company. Among adults and even children, talking and sharing information, ideas, and experiences, whether in their profession or for advancement to higher positions and spiritual attainment, were avid interests of the vast majority of the citizens. This was the most valued pastime. There was peace, and people were truly happy to spend time with each other. Back then, there just wasn't the same desire for the diversions that we use today. They didn't feel a pull for a lot of escapes. So, let's talk about life today. If you've ever found it uncomfortable to join friends for evenings or weekends because the conversation might turn into the fractious back and forth over politics, or somebody had too much to drink, or a couple of people just didn't like each other. During those times, you might find yourself quietly retreating a moment into an inner longing of what it would have been like to experience a more serene period of human existence. And that moment for you could very well be your sensing of distant memory from many thousands of years ago, when you lived on the ancient and highly advanced civilization on the continent of Mu. What we sense we're missing are the deeper spiritual elements that we can only have as we bring these back into our lives, person by person, and as we do that together. How we cooperate and act toward each other needs an understanding of cosmic or universal principles. This is why the Lemurian Brotherhood has released the Lemurian teachings once again, to reestablish what was lost with the sinking of the continent of Lemuria, and this time without the mistakes of the past. These Lemurian wisdom teachings are available today. The purpose is to make life one of greater peace and fulfillment, as was enjoyed back in Lemuria, and to help others on our planet to move toward a New Age civilization that is all-inclusive and based on the all-important Golden Rule. are a spiritual teaching in harmony with God and the universe, and is taught by the Lemurian Fellowship, that is the earthly channel of the Lemurian Mystery School, also known as the Lemurian Brotherhood. If any of you are interested in stopping by the Lemurian Fellowship, we'd be happy to welcome you. Those who do often comment how they are immediately struck by the serenity that surrounds them. Some people can feel how close the masters are, how often they are with us on these grounds, though we're not able to see them with our physical eyes. Feel free to give us a call or send us an email and let us know you'd like to come by, and we'd be glad to arrange a time to meet with you. We hope this much information has been interesting, and we'd be happy to take any questions you may have.